JD Vicarja. We're outside Daily Mount Park here recording the introduction for the very first episode of the Rebel Matters podcast that's going to be released from start to finish in video format. We sat down with Hasan Piker in the Rebel Matters studio about a week ago, did the edit on that interview last night, but we didn't have time to finish off the introduction inside the studio because we had to come down here to Dublin to take part in Mowgli Bap's 10k run, which is in aid of our Gaza Food and Play project. We ran from Daily Mount Park through the Phoenix Park, stopped at Aras and Uachtaran, had a quick chat with an Uachtaran, Catherine Connolly, who came out to meet the runners. I ended up back here at Daily Mount again to pick up one of the limited edition bows and kneecap t-shirts which are being sold, and some of the profits, 30%, are going to be going to the Ackley Palestine project in the Aida refugee camp in Palestine. Before we get stuck into the conversation, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the Prisoners for Palestine hunger strike is in a critical stage now. It's been on the go for over 40 days. The prisoners have yet to get an official response from the British government, and some of them have been refused medical attention from inside the prison cell. The strike hasn't received enough coverage in the mainstream media, and it really needs to be pushed up to the top of the political agenda. If you want to find out more about the strike, you can go to prisonersforpalestine.org. You can find them on social media as well, and you can also listen to the recent episode that we recorded with one of the striking prisoners from inside the prison with Amu Gib. So you'll find that episode on the 2 episodes ago. Finally, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of our patrons who've been supporting the Rebel Matters podcast through thick and thin. If you want to become a supporter of the show, you can find us on patreon.com/Rebel Matters. We really appreciate all of the support, and it truly is helping to keep the show on the road. Last but not least, enjoy the conversation with Hasan Piker. First of all, welcome to Belfast, and thanks very much for coming on to the podcast. It's great to have you here. Is this your first time in Ireland?
Yeah, first time in Ireland, first time in Belfast. It's been a journey.
What brought you here?
I came here for Trinity College, and they gave me an award that they've also given to Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, but also Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So I was like, all right, I'm somewhere in the middle there, politically. But I came here for that, and I made a trip out of it because I hung out with the lads, the kneecap boys, in Coachella, and I was, ever since then I've been like, I gotta come out, I gotta see Belfast for what it is. And so far it's been I've only been here for a couple hours, but it's been amazing.
What have you been up to?
I just got a black cab tour and got to see all the murals, got to see like the peace gates and the loyalist side a little bit as well, and learned about the history of the troubles and the protracted struggle against British occupation. It's been a really interesting journey. To see it in person is definitely a different feeling than reading about it or seeing it in movies or learning about it in general. And in my experience, at least, seeing all of the murals, the Palestinian murals, the representation for indigenous peoples all around the world, and then crossing over the peace gate, and then seeing the other side's murals, I was like, this is ridiculous. And I had I wanted to see, there's this one, like, you guys have gardens, right? And I think they have some like loyalist gardens on the other side as well, because it kind of feels like they just take everything.
Like the memorial gardens?
Yeah, like memorial gardens. It just kind of feels like they just take everything and copy it, but in reverse, politically and in general. And it's just like do a, worse job at it. But I had seen this mural, this collection of murals on the British side, where there's like a representation of like the Sons of Ulster from all the way from the Confederates to apartheid South Africa to Israel. So it's like it feels crazy that these guys have basically chosen the worst politics they possibly could on every conflict.
I bring people around Belfast quite often as well, and I've brought loads of people around who've never been to Belfast before. Yeah. Even people from the south who are coming up to Belfast for the first time as adults. And I often wonder, like, what people's first impressions are of coming up here. Like, what do you think, like, of the vibe? Is it? Do you think it's a fucked up place? You can be honest. Is it?
No.
You get it? Like it's just like something wrong with this place. The way the walls are. There's a divide there. There's two separate sets.
From that aspect, yes. I will say, every single person I talked to before I got here was like, "Oh, it's a little bit of a shithole." I'm not gonna lie. That's what they said. It's not, for the record. It's not at all. And I'm talking about Irish people that said this, for the record. But I think it's awesome. It is definitely interesting seeing segregation in such a direct way, and it's like colonial remnants still very much sitting in the middle of a city like a scar that you can just visualize, that you can see, and the vibes are still there. The all of the impact and all of the struggle is very much baked into the heart of the city.
Were you surprised by it?
I don't know. I feel like I've done a decent amount of reading on it, so it was like it's almost like seeing it in person is different than reading about it. But I guess it was a little bit jarring when you're going down the mile the stretch. I forget what it's called, where the long road where the wall is.
On the other side of the wall, where all of the graffiti is?
Well, not even that. I'm just saying, like, in general, when you're going down the road and you see, like, all of these homes on the Catholic side and the wall is so closely slammed behind them.
Bombay Street?
Yeah. It's even the way that they designed it, like, it's so obviously harmful to one side over the other. Like, there's this attitude where it's like, oh, why can't people get along, right? Like, from the outside, people might be thinking, oh, like, why can't people just get along? It seems like they just have religious differences or something. And it's like, no, it's not about fucking religion at all. And has everything to do with a very visible colonial segregation that has been implemented in this city. And it's in every road. It's in every nook and cranny that you can see. It's interesting.
That kind of dismissive statement of the type of struggle that was happening here about why can't they just get along, two religious factions that just don't agree with one another, actually is very similar to the argument that people use when they're trying to describe what's happening in Palestine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is another very common thing that Americans say all the time, where they're like, why are Irish people so pro-Palestine? And it's like, come to Belfast and you will immediately understand why Irish people are so pro-Palestine. I mean, the conditions imposed by the British here were not dissimilar to the West Bank at all. It's like and I haven't seen it personally. You've been, so you can speak to it a lot clearer than I can, but from everything that I've read, and you know, everything that I've studied on the matter, it's basically like seeing it. But the difference is it's in fucking Western Europe, which is so crazy.
Yeah, like the first time I went to Palestine was in 2018, and what brought me there in many ways was this just curiosity to find out what was going on there, and because of the fact that we had been raised with this sense of common sort of experience with Palestinians. So I was interested.
Yeah, the British fucked that up too. They had a hand in that too. So
yeah, more than a hand. Actually, have you seen Palestine 36 film that's out recently?
No, I haven't seen it.
Very good look at the British's role in Palestine.
Yeah,
it's just got released there recently. But the first time I was in Palestine, I was curious to just note down some of the things that were sort of familiar to me. Like the Jeeps were just a slightly more modern version than the Jeeps that we had here. The Israeli army, as far as I understand it, are actually modelled on the British army in many ways. We were in Al Khalil in Hebron, walking down Al Shuhada Street, which is closed off to Palestinians, and there was a patrol happening on that street at a time, and the group of soldiers that were on patrol were actually dressed the exact same, in the same uniform as what the paratroopers wore when they were here. Same colour of beret and everything like that. And I said to our tour guide, is that the paratroop regiment there? And he was like, oh, how did you know that? That's like same uniform as what they were wearing in Belfast. But at the same time, like, having said that, I am also conscious of not drawing parallels too much, or like overemphasizing parallels, and because there's a lot of things that happened here that didn't occur in Palestine, a lot of things that happened in Palestine are way above and beyond the type of destruction and violence that we experienced here. But I think that putting them too closely together in a way is sort of does a disservice to both.
Yeah.
In some respects.
But the similarities are definitely there, because it is. Yeah, I mean, it's a settler colonial movement. It's still colonialism. So seeing it in person, it is shocking, because this is 2 hours away from Dublin, right? Belfast is 2 hours away from Dublin by train. It's a beautiful train ride, by the way. And all of a sudden, you're still in Ireland, but there's just random walls everywhere. And there's memorials dedicated to people who have been ruthlessly slaughtered by the British occupation. And it's like, as an outsider's perspective, you look at that, and I think many Americans probably look at that and don't fully understand it either, where they're like, but you guys, you kind of sound the same, you look the same, you know what I mean, from afar, where it's almost like a confusing process, unless you are familiar with how empire works, at which point you very clearly understand what's going on. But that's why I was going to say, like, Americans are so confused by why Irish people in general are so pro-Palestine, are so, I guess, quote unquote, woke. But this is why.
The infrastructure of imperialism has just repeated itself.
Yeah.
Anywhere it has raised its head in the world is largely due to the fact that the Brits have been responsible for a lot of it, and they're using the same tactics. Yeah. No matter where they go. So how did you end up getting into this line of work that you're doing now?
I don't even know, honestly. I grew up in Turkey, and I was very interested in politics from an early age, because I saw the rise in power with the Erdogan regime. And there was a lot of social repression and political repression that was taking place at the time. And I didn't like it because I was very young. And I think that it just like built on top of that. It just expanded from that point on. And then when I was 18, I came to America. And growing up in Turkey, of course, I already had a perspective about American imperialism, endless destabilization, death and destruction. That was very different from someone living in Western Europe or someone living in the West in general. But when I came to the United States of America, and I saw that, like, in spite of all of the issues in Turkey, there was still at least like the bare bones of a public system, public healthcare, public schooling, public college, and the necessity of such things. And then watching Americans basically fuck themselves over and not have any of those things, like noticing the absence of those things, made me realize that the system is completely, like, capitalism in and of itself is completely a death spiral, a death march for the overwhelming majority of the people that live under it.
So would you say that you had your kind of a pivotal point in your political awakening in Turkey, or when you moved to the United States?
It's just like the two different pivotal points were when I was growing up, when I experienced like any kind of like social regression, and then I think anti-capitalism came after. From like anti-imperialism came first for me before anti-capitalism. I saw the impact of military adventurism in the region, and I didn't like it. But then anti-capitalism came after when I came to America. The first medical bill that comes in, you're like, wow, this is unacceptable. This is ridiculous. Like, you need healthcare. What the fuck are we doing?
In Turkey, do you have any particular event when you were a kid that was kind of the point where you realized, okay, things aren't right here?
It sounds kind of silly, but it was, I used to read, in Turkey, there's a tradition of like political satire, political cartoons, and I think it was Erdogan sued both of the political cartoon newspapers that I used to read all the time, and like all the satirists, because they had drawn him as a animal, Like they put his head on an animal, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like you're the prime minister at the time. Like why do you care? Why do you care about this? This is so silly. It was that and the fears of like potentially rolling back some of these civil liberties. But I think I was more of a liberal back then for sure, and it was definitely the social element that was something that I didn't appreciate.
One of my brothers was living in London for a few years. He's working for Arsenal Football Club, and I went over to visit him, and we were walking through Camden Town one day, and across the street there was this guy walking backwards, only walking backwards, like walking like this. Mm-hmm. I spotted him and I said to Corbett, that guy's just walking backwards the whole way since I've been looking at him. And we were kind of watching him, and then I was like, I'm going over to talk to him. So we started following him, but he's moving, like he was walking quite fast, so we were like...
What, backwards?
He was at a fast-paced walk, what we would do going forward, but he was doing it going backwards. He was pretty good at like navigating, you know, past people and around corners and everything. And eventually he stopped and he had his back to a wall. And I went up to him and said hello. And he's like, well, how's it going? And he had a keffiyeh on. Me and Carver had them on as well, black and white one. I was like, I like your keffiyeh. He's like, thanks. And he's like, do we know each other? And I was like, no, I just spotted you from across the street, and I just wanted to come over and see like what the story is and how come you're walking backwards. And he said he just woke up one day and he couldn't walk forward. And I was like, what happens if you try and walk forward? And he was like, I'll show you. And he was like, nearly fell over. He's like walking like he was made out of steel or something. But he said that he woke up one day during Theresa May's election campaign when she was trying to get elected as the Prime Minister or whatever. And her slogan was, let's all move forward together. And he said that something must have snapped in him and he couldn't go forward anymore. He had to just go backwards.
This is a real story.
I swear to God, after me and Carver were speaking to him,
Theresa May gave this guy an aneurysm.
Yeah. I was like, after we finished speaking to him, I was like, if that's true, there's got to be something on the internet about it already. And there is, if you look it up.
There is.
Camden's backward walking man. He's passed away now. R.I.P. But
it had nothing to do with him walking backwards. His passing away.
No.
He just passed away of old age.
But we ended up talking to him for a while, and he had been in jail in Turkey because he was a cartoonist, and he drew a picture of Erdogan, his head on a dog, and the ass of the dog was...
Wait,
like,
what's this guy's name?
George Bush or something on the ass. Just put in Camden's backwards walking man.
I'm going to look this up. Okay. That's crazy. Backwards walking man.
Yep.
Michael Dickinson.
Check out the videos. You'll see maybe a sample of him going backwards.
Oh, so he was a British guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I see him.
Yeah, that's him.
Wow. That's crazy.
So then he got out of jail and he did it again and then deported him.
Okay. I didn't even know that they were doing it to British people. But I mean, it makes sense. Erdogan is like, he's got a long reach, you know? He's done this with like Europeans as well. So it's not surprising.
Are you still sort of connected back in Turkey?
So my whole family's still in Turkey, but I haven't been back in a while now. I almost about to be 10 years at this point, because I also wrote about the coup that took place in Turkey, and the government wasn't fond of the way I wrote about it on the Huffington Post. And ever since then, I haven't really been able to return. But you know, one day, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
So then, how did you end up doing your streams and stuff in America?
So after college, I couldn't find a job because the job market is shit. And I wanted to live in LA. I wanted to get out of New Jersey. I graduated from Rutgers. And my uncle had a YouTube channel, still has a YouTube channel called The Young Turks. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah, so I basically told my family, I'm just going to go and like intern with him while I study for the LSATs, the law school application test. And I had no intention of going to law school whatsoever. I just wanted to go to LA and live in LA. So I started interning there. And then I was like, I'm not going to go to law school. So I got a job there and I started working there. And I slowly but surely worked through. I mean, at first I was doing advertising stuff. I was selling ad slots. And afterwards, I started doing producer work for them on the side for free, just like doing a fill role wherever I could. And it was already like, it wasn't like a massive company or anything. It was like 20 people. And slowly but surely, I just kind of forced myself, like nudged myself into whatever crevice I could on the production side. And then while I was doing that, I also wanted to have something of my own, like some content creation initiatives on my own. And I decided I'll live stream on Twitch and build a community there. It was a video gaming platform at the time, like people play video games and live stream themselves doing that. And I was also playing video games. I was playing Fortnite, but I was talking about politics while I was playing Fortnite, and I wanted to get better at doing off-the-cuff commentary. Because up until that point in 2018, when I started live streaming on Twitch by slapping a camera onto my PlayStation and going directly live off of my PlayStation, I had only done pre-scripted content. And I was a decent writer, I think, but I was very bad off the cuff. And I wanted to train myself to get better and be able to do political commentary. So I thought, this is like training. If I can entertain people while playing a video game and also talk about, politically sensitive subjects, then, I can get a lot better when I'm not playing a video game. And basically, that was the initial purpose. It was that, and also because like the gaming sphere is like very right wing. But gamers themselves are not super right-wing. Like they're much more diverse ideologically than what the available options of commentary were. Because the commentary side of the gaming world is very right-wing, and it still is. So I wanted to show people that you can be progressive, have fun at the same time, and also serve this market of people that were looking for something different.
So why do you think there's been such a big appetite or a big space for the kind of message that you're delivering on your Twitch streams?
I think it's partially because many people have just never encountered my worldview in America. It's new for them, or at least they've never seen it in a positive manner. Most Americans are very deluded about what socialism is. They've been negatively conditioned against anti-imperialism, socialism, because America is a very liberal country, and it's a very right-wing country in many respects. So for a lot of people, I think it just clicks when they hear this alternative for the first time ever, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's actually true. Maybe it isn't, random immigrants or trans people that are responsible for all of the issues that I'm facing. Maybe it is the super wealthy. Maybe it is the capital owners that have designed society this way." And it sounds kind of silly to explain it like that, but I do think that it's the novelty of it almost, where people encounter it for the first time because they're looking for they're looking for an answer to why they can't afford things. They're looking for an answer as to why their job kind of sucks and they don't have good benefits. They don't have good wages, and wages don't keep up with the cost of living in general. And many of those answers on the right are the most visible answers that they see all the time, which is redirecting their anger and angst back to vulnerable populations, marginalized groups. So when they don't vibe with that, when they don't agree with that worldview, but they still have this interest in trying to figure out exactly why they're experiencing these struggles, but they're not hateful, right? They're not primed to be hateful. All of a sudden they hear it from someone like myself and go, okay, that actually does make sense. And I think that is the reason why even socialists as a movement, as an ideology, is now growing in America again. It's nowhere near where it should be. And it's not even close to as popular of a movement as it was even before the New Deal, like in that same time frame in America, when there were much more active organizations. But, you make do.
Do you think that we're in a period of time where, for young Americans, a lot of the conditioning that they've experienced is starting to unravel?
Yeah, for sure. I think the social fabric is unwinding, untangling every day. The social contract is completely blown up. People have no hope for a better future. They don't believe that they will retire at a reasonable age. They don't believe that they'll ever own a home. And things are getting less and less affordable year over year. And they're very frustrated.
Do you think that people's awareness and consciousness about what's happening in Palestine over the course of the last 2 years especially has been kind of a bit of a catalyst for that kind of unraveling of conditioning? I'm just thinking about when Kneecap were in Coachella, and obviously they faced a huge backlash for putting the anti-genocide message up on their graphics board during their sets, but received nearly unanimous support from the crowd.
Yeah. I think it goes hand in hand. So what I mean by that is, the less people are trusting of institutions, the less they're willing to subscribe to whatever the administration is saying, the government is saying. If they don't feel protected by the American government, then they're going to be less invested in whatever message they want to put out there. And I think that instability is part of the reason why, when so many Americans for the first time ever saw images of slaughtered children on their timelines, and then they saw the very same mainstream institutions like legacy publishers try to contextualize that death and destruction and say, oh, no, you don't understand. This has to happen. This is collateral. This is collateral damage at most. They turned around and said, no, actually, this is pretty fucked up. So they both play a role. And I think the more established institutions resisted against listening to the demands being made by the public about all the death and destruction that they had seen, demands to cut ties with Israel, demands to stop sending weapons to Israel, the more the administration tried to suppress that kind of sentiment. Joe Biden arrested 3,500 student protesters, all peaceful activists, right? All peaceful protesters over the end of his tenure, basically. And the more the administration tried to censor and suppress the people's wishes, the angrier they got. And it reached a boiling point. And as someone who has been open about his anti-Zionism for the past 12 years in my professional media career, I never would have imagined that attitudes would swing in the other direction so fast. Because obviously this ongoing genocide and ongoing conflict has been around for more than 80 years. But for the last 78 years or so, most people were either completely oblivious to it, or if they were knowledgeable on it, they usually overwhelmingly were in favor of Israel and whatever fake position that Zionists had created to justify having an existing apartheid state.
History sort of has a habit of repeating itself, and during the period of time of apartheid South Africa, people would have seen that as a permanent installation on the world stage, and to a certain degree it was permanent until it started to fall. Yeah. And then it was gone. What's your assessment of why the American government are so heavily invested in continuing to support Israel?
There's a multitude of different reasons, but I think it's I go back and forth on this. I'm somewhere in the middle of like the Mersheimer side of things and the Noam Chomsky side of things, right? Like Mersheimer believes it's the prevalence of the lobby, the Israeli lobby, and its immense influence on American politics, and Noam Chomsky, on the other hand, believes that it's an imperial vestige. And I think it's both. The reason why America is so invested in Israel, and even at times when it's an unreliable ally or an ally that is actually harmful to American interests, is because it is a permanent destabilizing factor in a resource-rich region, right? It's a Cold War ally at times. It has its own espionage tools. It's a laboratory for weapons on a captive population, and a laboratory for different surveillance techniques as well. However, because of that, Israel has also had this tremendous allowance to basically operate on U.S. soil without any restrictions whatsoever. So, for example, we have a concept called FARA in America. It's the Foreign Agent Registration Act. Israel's a foreign nation, and yet its lobbyists and its operatives do not actually have to register with FARA. They can simply operate on U.S. soil. It's the only country.
Military operatives, are we talking about?
No, this is like lobbying.
Lobbying?
Like lobbying the government or engaging in any sort of lobbying initiative at the behest of the Israeli state. They don't have to register as foreign agents, like many people don't. And that is an allowance that you get when the American State Department considers you to be the most significant destabilizing factor in this region. I think they trust Israel more than they do even Saudi Arabia and numerous other oil-rich countries that are also vassal states at this point.
So we've seen over the course of the last 2 years in Ireland and in many countries, the most sustained mass movement of people are gathering around the issue of Palestine, people protesting against the genocide. It's probably the same in America. A lot of marches happening up and down the country.
Yeah.
How do you see the current state of the mainstream Palestine solidarity movement in North America at the minute?
I think it reached its apex point, but I feel like the fake ceasefire initiative that was presented specifically to, I think, make people feel like they had achieved some semblance of success and stop the protests has been somewhat successful in actually shifting people's priorities and attention away from what's going on. Although the atrocities continue, albeit not to the same degree as it did over the course of the past 2 years before the fake Gaza peace plan.
Which doesn't include the West Bank at all.
Yeah,
things in the West
of
Bank
course.
have escalated since then.
Things in the West Bank have been supercharged since October 7, and it's still continuing. Yeah, the occupation is certainly permanent there and getting worse, and they're getting even bolder as well with the way that they are talking about annexing the entirety of the West Bank. However, I think that a lot of people have moved away from. They're still pro-Palestine, they're still anti-Israel, but I would say that they're not as active as they once were.
Do you think that there's still scope for a radical pro-Palestine movement in America to sort of push it to the point of tipping the balance so that something significant happens for Palestine from an American perspective?
That's a little bit too optimistic, I would say. But then again, I've been surprised pleasantly so far. So maybe there's more room for growth there as well.
In terms of Ireland, then, Ireland is positioned as an American ally, an ally of the United States in many respects, and as we've already talked about, has seen a huge groundswell of support for Palestine, not just over the course of the last 2 years, but it's sort of ingrained historically, kind of support for Palestine here. But how do you see Ireland in terms of the Irish state down south and its kind of where it's positioned as an ally of North America, and people are kind of positioned, have sort of positioned the country as an ally of Palestine, but on a state level we haven't really done anything significant?
Yeah. Look, I'm an American citizen, so I can't talk too much shit, but the reality of the matter is it is nowhere near where it could be in terms of like being a real leader in the global stage in the anti-apartheid movement, for sure. And what I mean by that is, I believe there was a BDS initiative at the state level in Ireland.
Correct.
That did not get implemented.
The Occupied Territories Bill.
Yeah, but that didn't get implemented.
No.
And that's what I mean. It's like sanctions, or not even sanctions, but like cutting weapons transfers, or not even ever having weapons transfers, really is one thing. But I think like a fake state recognition in the way that France and numerous other European countries tried to implement, led by the Palestinian Authority, which is, compradors and collaborators with the Israeli state, at least from the perspective of the Palestinian people. That seems to be the case. Like all of this stuff is, I think all of these things are done in a very cynical manner. Like they're not moving the needle towards liberation for Palestinians. It's not true emancipation at all, and it's more so to try and get ahead of the groundswell of the popular movement in that direction from the masses, because the Western liberal capitalist democracies, I feel like, still have a responsibility to alleviate some of the pressure and release this pressure somehow. And I think that's the reason why they try to find like new ways of making it seem like they're actually moving in this direction,
like the recognition
and listening,
of the state
and listening to the demands being made by the public, when in fact the real goal there is to try to get them to no longer pay attention to it at all. And it's the same principle behind even like forcing Israel's hand to stop slaughtering Gazans en masse. It was basically because it was getting to a point where I think it was causing too much instability, where even European allies were starting to move away from the United States of America.
That doesn't apply just to Ireland. You could apply the same thing to any of the Western states who have had a massive groundswell of support for Palestine, but yet have failed to do anything significant.
But I feel like because of Ireland's position in general, not being a NATO nation, I think it has more room for mobility here. It has more of an opportunity, both with its its anti-colonial history, and also with its position in Western Europe. I think Ireland could be a real leader, and on that front, they have not.
We potentially are punching above our weight in terms of the size of the country and the amount of impact that we could potentially have if we were taking the right steps, because of some of the things that you mentioned, and especially our proximity to North America geographically, and also sort of as a
even culturally, it's I think I mean, look, what is it? It's like 80 million Irish Americans. There is definitely it's really interesting. Like Americans do actually look to Ireland with a sense of brotherhood, almost, where like there is this brotherly bond between America and Ireland, and you even see that with the likes of American Republicans, not Irish Republicans, but like the Republican Party, the Conservative Party. One of the Republican congresspersons was responsible for like doing weapons transfers to the IRA at the time, and you know, there were American bars that were fundraising for the provisional IRA, and that is direct material support to an anti-colonial movement, and it's unexpected from, you know, the country that is the hegemonic superpower, the American empire, right? So even in that respect, I feel like Ireland culturally could have more impact on the mindset of Americans.
And on top of that, Ireland sort of is an important economic base for American companies and so on.
Of course.
So there's a huge amount of influence that could be sort of affected from that point of view. I read somewhere just when I was on the train up to meet you here, that 70% of your audience are male from 30 years and under.
Yeah.
Is that roughly accurate?
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case?
I don't know why that's the case. I don't know, because I'm a 34-year-old guy, so that's probably part of it. But, I do things that people my age do. I enjoy things that people my age enjoy, so that's probably the reason why people see an affinity towards what I'm saying and doing,
I didn't really follow along with the whole circus that was going on around Jordan Peterson. I believe he's left the stage of late in terms of him being so prolific in the public eye or whatever, but his base would have been largely kind of young men as well, right?
Yeah. So I mean, he might be dead now, by the way. We don't even know. We don't know where he is. I think he's in hospice care or something, but he's also had situations like that in the past where he almost died because he had a benzo addiction. And then he had to get this controversial treatment that you can only get in Russia, where they just make you quit benzos cold turkey, and he had to be put in a coma for that. And then he got COVID after in the recovery process because his daughter was trying to fuck Andrew Tate in Serbia. Very interesting stories there for Jordan Peterson. But to go back to what you were saying, yes, he had a young male audience. I say he had because I feel like he's no longer as culturally relevant. But there is still a major young right-wing fan base out there of people that just don't even think that they're political, but they love consuming the Joe Rogan Experience and numerous right-wing and sometimes even far-right podcasts and content creators. But there are always going to be some people who are seeking out alternatives to that. And I try to do my very best to pull people away from the throes of right-wing radicalization and to try to explain to them why they have this sense of resentment that they have in their hearts and who the real villains are, rather than, choosing to target and choosing to redirect the enmity or anxiety or anger that people feel towards vulnerable populations.
A lot of that narrative that's presented by the kind of right wingers like Peterson seems to be based around this sense of neoliberalism, kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and if you can, if I can do it, then anybody can do it, and that's just the way it is. Take responsibility for yourself, and it's very much an individual kind of a philosophy.
Yeah, but it works really well in places like Canada and the United States of America. It's Americans are hyper individualistic. And they're aspirational. I think it's a quote that's falsely attributed to Steinbeck that goes something like, socialism would never work in America because the working class do not see themselves as an exploited proletariat, but temporarily embarrassed millionaires. And that's stuck with me. Americans do genuinely think that they're temporarily embarrassed millionaires and billionaires. One day I'll get there. One day I'll be just as rich as Elon Musk. And then those poors better look out. They better watch out. And that is the prevailing attitude, unfortunately, where people are totally bought into this notion that if they wheel and deal, if they scheme, they'll get an upper hand on the next guy. And then one day they'll become super rich.
It's the American dream.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the reason why I think in America, and this is a little bit different than other European countries, culturally at least, we revere and love our super duper wealthy. They're on television. They don't even have to hide. They don't have to be mysterious about their background or their identities. They can go on podcasts and talk about how awesome it is to be a billionaire. And a lot of Americans eat that shit up because they go, yeah, I want to be just like that guy. He did it, and I can too. And I think that's just a lie. That's not how that works at all. You have to be unimaginably lucky and also probably come from a fairly privileged background to be able to reach that level of success. And it's statistically very unlikely that you ever will. But a guy like myself saying that is very frustrating for people. They hear me say that and they go, "Oh, you're being a pessimist. I will actually make it there. Why are you telling me I won't be able to make it?" They don't realize that I'm saying, like, no, the system is designed so you never actually make it there, but you feel like you will. And they do it by propping up some of these people that have actually gotten a crumb of upward social mobility, or tremendous amounts of upward social mobility, with the false notion that you too can also achieve it. Because everything is built around this lie of meritocracy.
What's your feeling about what direction North America is moving at the moment?
It's bad. It's very, very bad. I think that as material conditions worsen, people get more and more frustrated, and we have a very right-wing, a far-right party that is basically redesigning itself as a fascist party, and there's no counterbalance towards that. There's no socialist movement that is as robust or as organized as it needs to be, and the Democrats are also a feckless institutionalist movement that has no real grassroots backing at all. It's just the other option that you have to pick, and that's why there's a lot of resentment towards the Democrats as well right now. They're historically unpopular when they should be much more popular right now, because Donald Trump is also unimaginably unpopular, and the Republicans are unimaginably unpopular, and yet the Democrats can't even take advantage of that unpopularity because they're not doing anything. They're doing nothing. They're just rolling over and showing their bellies.
Do you believe in the prospect of a socialist revolution?
I mean, I hope for it, but I don't know if it will be achieved in my lifetime. Having said that, that won't stop me from moving or trying to do my very best to move in that direction. I just saw the Bobby Sands quote. It's like every Republican or non-Republican alike has a role to play. I'm paraphrasing. He was much more eloquent than I am, obviously. But that's the way I see it as well, where everyone has a role to play. And little by little, you just keep trying to move society in a better direction, in a more positive direction, so that maybe the next generation can actually see the true egalitarianism that we are supposed to have.
Did you read a lot of books when you were growing up?
I read a decent amount. I don't really read as much anymore, but I did when I was growing up.
Any books stick out in your head as memorable ones?
I don't know. I have no like immediate books that come to mind. I'm also terrible at recall in general. If you ask me about any songs, for example, I can never tell you any of the lyrics. Or if you ask me about like what my favorite movie is, I have a very hard time pulling from my brain. Maybe it's because it's packed with ridiculous pieces of information about like American politics or American history or just world history in general.
Give us a ridiculous piece of information.
Okay, see, you're putting me on the spot. I'm gonna give you a ridiculous piece of information. Let me think. I'm also very jet lagged right now. I've been traveling quite a bit this past month. What's a ridiculous piece of information I can give you? Abraham Lincoln is the first bisexual American president, and he was in a gay relationship with his bodyguard.
Is that true?
Yeah. Or here, I'll give you another Abraham Lincoln one. I don't know why I'm going with Abe Lincoln here, but that's speculative. But there is a decent amount of evidence to suggest that was the case. Karl Marx and Abraham Lincoln, well, they didn't correspond with one another, but Karl Marx was actually fascinated with America and America and slavery in general. Wrote about it extensively, and at the time he actually sent letters to Abraham Lincoln. And the original charter of the Republican Party in the United States of America actually had a piece in it where, and this is very different than the Republican Party of today, but the Republican Party initially in its founding had it in its charter the abolition of wage slavery as well as chattel slavery. the abolition of chattel slavery in the South and the abolition of wage slavery in general. So it was much more socialist in its inception, and it's no longer.
Things have changed.
It's no longer that. They very quickly swapped that around, I think.
It's funny when people get Irish republicanism mixed up with American republicanism.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. American politics is just busted. It's like we're like an island on our own. Because in America, liberal means you're left. Like, people think liberals are the leftmost position you can have. That's why even when newspapers write about me, they say like, oh, he's a liberal. He is well, nowadays I think that's changing a little bit, and they do say socialist or Marxist or far left or leftist. But back in the day, they used to just say he's a very liberal guy when they're talking about my politics. I'm like, I'm not a liberal. But in Europe, when you say liberal, people understand what that is. They know it's right wing as an ideology. But in America, it's still right wing, but it's the most left wing mainstream political ideology you can associate with.
What's been the biggest criticism you've faced in recent times?
Oof, all the time. I receive an endless amount of criticism. Not many of it is valid, I don't think, but I am a little biased, of course. Where do I begin? Rich socialist, socialism but wealthy. There's also a lot of just things that people make up. They constantly claim, and there's like AI articles that people have written as well about my father being a billionaire, which is not true. But it's mostly stuff like that. It's just like there is a lot of resentment when people who closely follow politics hear from someone like myself and hear my political positions and for no real reason whatsoever develop a tremendous amount of resentment towards not only my worldview or the things I'm promoting, and they find it to be dangerous or scary, and it angers them. So they just, instead of trying to identify my worldview and maybe offering counter narratives, they just decide to make shit up.
How do you feel about being a public figure and someone who people recognize you when you're walking down the street and are aware of your political views and might come up to you and kind of challenge you on them?
That never really happens. The overwhelming majority, if not virtually every single person that I encounter, is usually either a fan or knows about me and has like a positive association with what I do. Maybe there are haters, but they often shy away from approaching me. There was one guy who came up to me and he was doing the Free Kaya thing the other day, or last night actually, when I was doing the Revolutionary Tour in Dublin. Yeah, it was the only time where someone came up as like a hater, I guess. And even then, it was like a relatively tame experience. He came in and he had a poster that he had like basically gotten printed out, like it was like almost like a work of art of a meme of me as Raiden shocking, electrocuting my dog Kaya. And he pulled it out. He had a mask on, and he came up, he approached me, he was like, oh, can I take a stream photo? And I was like, sure, that's fine. And it's we were live streaming at the time, and he just pulled it out and he said, Free Kaya. And I was like, oh, all right, nice to meet you, man. And he's like, yeah, nice to meet you. And then he walked away, and that was it. But that's like the most negative interaction I've had, which is nothing, right? In a sea of overwhelmingly positive interactions.
Do you enjoy being even like in the public eye in general?
I don't know. I feel like I have so much privilege. I'm so fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. I never could have imagined that I would see the level of success that I saw. And so I don't really take it for granted at all. I'm very aware of it. But, there are times where I'm like, damn, it would be nice if I could just like do whatever I wanted to do without so much scrutiny and so much attention. So, yeah, there's the good and the bad. But ultimately, I'm very happy with how things have turned out.
Do you have any plans for the upcoming weeks and months?
I think I'm gonna I think I'm gonna go back to America and maybe not travel as much, because I've had like a crazy month of travel. So I don't have anything coming up. I mean, I have a bunch of like college tours and stuff like that, you know, college speaking engagements and things like that, but it's mostly in America, and I think maybe some in Canada, but I don't have anything like crazy coming up that I can think of right now.
Did I see somewhere that you were going to be debating Charlie Kirk? Was that a thing?
Yeah, so I was supposed to debate him 2 weeks before he got assassinated, and we were supposed to debate one another in Dartmouth, and obviously that didn't happen because he got shot in the neck and killed. Yeah, and then they wanted to replace that debate with Ben Shapiro, and then he backed out. But then CBS News actually came back, now under the leadership of Barry Weiss, who is a massive Israel supporter, and was specifically put in charge of CBS News so that she could make CBS News more pro-Israel, even though it already is pretty pro-Israel. They wanted to set up a debate between me and Ben Shapiro on socialism versus capitalism. And I went back to them, and I was down to do it, but I was like, I want to talk about Israel-Palestine with Ben Shapiro. And they were like, no, we're not doing that. I wonder why.
They're afraid you're going to take him?
Yeah. And even the capitalism debate, like the boundaries that they wanted to set for the debate, and it was supposed to be moderated, I believe, by Anderson Cooper. The boundaries they wanted to set, or the debate premise was going to be, capitalism has been good for the world. And yeah, I mean, it's better than feudalism. Like, I think every socialist or any well-read Marxist would agree, yes, capitalism was an evolution that was decent at the time. It's just run its course. It's run its use. It's outlived its usefulness at this point.
It's going to be a good place to finish up.
All right.
Thanks very much for joining me on this
thanks
show.
for having me.
We've got a bit of a night ahead in Belfast now.
Yeah, I know. I haven't eaten yet today either, so I'm gonna have some food, go live, and then I'll see you later when we go out to drink.